Hello everybody and welcome to the first episode of Q&A Mondays, where I answer questions asked by you to my form string because I'm cool like that. It's me, Gabrielwingue, and I am joined by
Matt Koji,
who's going to assist me with a little demonstration in a little bit. Two questions were asked this week that I'm going to answer today. The first one was why my net handle is my net handle. And previously you didn't know the whole story, but we tried doing this once and it tanked, so now you do know the whole story.
Yeah.
Gabrielwingue is essentially a character that I wrote. It was when I used to do a lot of role-playing, I did a thing called e-fetting, where it's essentially wrestling role-playing sort of thing. Originally the character's name was Gabrielwingue, just with the G, no UE at the end. And it turned out that a couple of the girls on the board spoke French. I think one was from France, one was from Quebec, or they were both from France. Anyway. And since I wanted to try to keep my French fresh since I learned it in elementary school, I decided to make my character French, and the easiest way to make anything French is to add a UE to the end of it, because that makes everything French. I made my character Acadian from northern New Brunswick, like you. And yeah, that's the story of Gabrielwingue. My old net handle actually before Gabrielwingue was
Alkaline Angel.
Do you remember why? I told you why?
I don't know, that was what your email was?
Yes. No, it was because people used to say that I was their guardian angel because I was the one that everybody went to for advice. And then one of my teachers once told me that if you hooked me up to electrodes, I could like power the entire city because I was a huge battery. So it became Alkaline Angel. It's terrible and it's tacky, but hey, it's me. The other question that was asked was actually asked by someone who did not remain anonymous. It was asked by Kagme Yui. And she wanted to know, how does one survive a winter in the land of the moose? Which is not the land of the moose, it's Canada, but they call it...
Land of the beaver. It actually is.
The beaver is a proud and noble animal. If you don't get what that's a reference to, Underbar. If you're wondering why people have been asking me this, that's your answer. It's snowing. Mind you, that's not like exclusively the reason, but it's also because Canada gets notoriously cold in the winter. So somebody asked me, what does one need to pack, a survival guide, if you will, to survive Canada? The easiest and simplest way to describe this in the too long didn't read version is layers. Otherwise, if you want specific items, me and Koji have you covered. Starting off first with the head, because it's the easiest thing to cover. You're essentially going to need one of these. We call them toques in Canada. That's T-O-U-Q-U-E. For those of you like expanding your lexicon. In America, they call them beanie caps. I guess. I don't know
Sometimes.
what the fuck a beanie cap is. But essentially, it's a hat, usually made out of some kind of fabric that goes down far enough that it covers your ears. You can buy really good ones that have long brims that go down to like here, and then you can fold them up over your ears twice, which makes them even better. But this is essentially the bare minimum of what you'll need to cover your head. If you have a headband or earmuffs, those are awesome. Or if you have a hat that can double as a headband or earmuffs, like a Ushanka or something like that.
Earmuffs.
And there you go. So that's step one. We'll leave them on so you guys can see what the end result is. Next, the easiest thing to do is boots. What I have here is essentially the bare minimum. You want at least a boot that has a section above the ankle. Extra support because of ice, also to stop snow from getting in. You want them to be high enough that you can put them on so that you can take, once they're tied up, I realize these are untied, but you can put the leg of your pants over it. The bigger, like the higher up the edge of the boot, the better. I'll give you an example of some long edge boots now. Koji here has what you would call your typical winter boots. These are the kind of things that you want. These will go pretty far up his leg there, and then he can put his pants over them fairly easily. Pants are a big thing. Have long enough pants that you can put the ends of your pants over your boots. Try not to make them too long though, because you don't want them dragging through the snow. Under your pants, we obviously can't show you guys that unless you want to see us damn near naked, but thermal underwear, long johns, whatever you call them, have one pair of those. If they're big enough that you can wear them over regular underwear, that's better because then they won't get dirty all the time. But have at least one pair of those for the really, really cold days. Not always a necessity, but good to have just in case. Gloves, going up the arms here. The simplest thing are, of course, your light gloves. As kind of an indicator, Koji actually has 2 sets of them layered together because he's poor and can't afford really good gloves.
No, I just prefer having the dexterity.
Teasing. These are good. You get the full dexterity of your hands. You'll be able to move all of your digits. But they're not particularly thick, which means they don't keep your hands particularly warm even when you layer them twice. Layering them twice is okay. So you're going to want to move up to something a little bit thicker. Now there's 2 options for thicker gloves. There's these are motorcycle style gloves. They're padded and their outer layer is leather. These are good for most temperatures until it dips really cold, because once it gets cold enough that the leather will start to chill, these are useless to you. Because once the leather gets cold, your outer layer is cold and you can't keep your hands warm. Other than, you should have 1 pair of the small gloves, and you should also have 1 pair of these. These are full form winter gloves. You don't have as much dexterity as with the little gloves, but you want one that's big enough and thick enough that you can put your hand in it and put another thin pair of gloves inside of it if need be. So these are not a necessity, but the other 2 are. Moving on to the most important part of your body, which is your upper body. Shirts and stuff. T-shirts are fine, long sleeve tees are better. Don't worry too much about this layer. As long as you have something to put here, you are good. Beyond that, there's a couple things that you should have to try to dress for the weather. There's a few options for keeping warm. There's your thin sweaters.
Such as this.
That one zips up, of course, so like that's good. That's a thin sweater. That'll do you until about 0 degrees. Once you get below that, that's not exactly the most comfortable thing to be wearing. You've got your heavy sweater. Most times these come in the forms of hoodies, so you will see hoods on them like this one. These are good for colder weather, but not too cold. These buy you in a couple extra degrees and keep your head warm over a hat if you're wearing a hat too, which are nice. But these are not like the be-all end-all. Now there's 2 types of winter coats. You want your winter coat to be big enough that you can put at least a light sweater underneath it when it's in full gear. If it's big enough that you can put a heavy sweater underneath it, that's better. The first form are the single-piece jackets. These are usually filled with down or something similar and are good to 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. Koji has one of these.
Yeah.
They're thick, they're isolated. Some of them have it's like an aluminum style insulator as well. And these are really, really good. There's just one disadvantage to them, which is that they aren't temperature specific. You'll have to wear them the second your sweaters won't do anymore, and if it's not that cold, you will get very hot and very sweaty in them.
Yeah.
My preference, although those jackets are great if you have one of those, that's fine. I prefer the 2-piece jackets. I have a 2-piece jacket. Mine has an outer shell, which is padded, that you can take out. And there's the inner layer. And essentially how these jackets work is because the outer shell can come off, you can mix them with any thickness of sweater. Now, of course, this may not look as thick as my hoodie, but this is actually warmer than the hoodie just because of the way that the sweater's designed. But these you can mix with any thickness of sweater, any design of sweater. You can put them together and put sweaters underneath them, so you can dress temperature specific. For a day like today, where by the time I get home from work tonight at midnight it's probably going to be at least 10 to 15 below, this and a small sweater should do. There's no reason to be afraid of Canada in the winter. That's just a quick guide, things you should have if you come. You don't have to have all of it, but as long as you kind of have something from each category, you should be okay. A couple of small things. If you have a pair of wool socks, it doesn't hurt to bring them. You may not always need them depending on how good your boots are, but wool socks are better than sports socks.
Keeps your toes warm, which is usually a pretty big problem when you're wearing boots in winter.
Other than that, just use common sense. Don't be afraid of the cold, and as long as you know how to layer up, everything will be fine. How to survive winter in Canada.
Yeah.
If you want your question featured on a future episode of Q&A Monday, I will leave a link to my form spring below. You have, like I said, I answer questions all week usually. If your question doesn't get answered, because I do answer almost every question that comes in, it's probably being saved for Monday. So if you leave a question, you don't hear anything back, don't fret. It's probably getting answered the next Monday. And that's about it. So for episode 1 of Q&A Monday, I've been Gabe, and this is
Mech Koji.
and we will see you next Monday.
Yeah.